Hello, welcome back. This is Jeff Byers, and this is Annie255, and this is my entire water fountain environment scene. You can see I have my water fountain in here, and I've broken everything up into smaller pieces to be able to UV map them and texture them. So everything's UV map and texture. The reason why I have wireframe on, I can turn that off anytime I want to, and I can also turn off texturing so you can see my modeling. It's just a very simple scene. And what I did was I reused the props that I found on CG Trader. Okay, those are the props, and you will need to model the water fountain and texture that yourself. If you don't want to add materials, or excuse me, if you don't want to add textures, but you will have to add materials. But these are already textured, so you can just apply the textures on those. But what I actually built was this scene here. You can see that I've got a background plate for, and it's curved. So I basically created a cylinder, cut it in half, and cut it down even further, and then cut the tops off in the bottom. And I just used a cube for that, and I modeled these separate pieces here, as you can see, for my environment scene. So very simple. It's not that tough, and I broke them up in small pieces and UV mapped them. And these are just the light lamp posts for the scene itself. So I just wanted to share that with you to show you what it looks like. I'm also going to have I think a screenshot I'm going to add in module 4. So if you've gotten this far and you've textured everything, that's fantastic. That's great. I hope you had fun with this. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you how to get the screenshots that I need for this. And let's go ahead and open up show lights so you can see my lights. So I've got several lights in here. You're going to need to have several lights in here. And I'll kind of share with you the angles that I used. Okay. Now it doesn't matter where you place directional lights. You can find them in Create Lights and Directional Light. I would highly recommend those because they're on the outside. So I'll take you through how I set this scene up. Again, I showed you how I modeled that. It's basically a cylinder and cut the tops and bottoms off. And I even cut a little bit more off the sides here so this would not stretch. Okay. And I placed that in the background. Alright, I went ahead and, of course, set dressed everything, as you see here. Modeled and set dressed and textured everything. So when you get to this point, then you're ready to do a screenshot. Okay. Alright, and then we'll do the render. So I'll show you kind of basically what I've got. So that's just a flat plane, and if you look, I never really see this. I couldn't really get that into the scene, but into the shot. But the funny thing is, I was able to get 4 in the shot. So I've got a little mailbox here, the trash can. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've got 4 objects. So I met the requirements. I was looking for a bike. That would be kind of cool to put a bike here, kind of tell more of a story or a scene, or whatever, and add that in there. It'd be kind of fun. But it is what it is, and so the animation is working. Let's get out of the expert mode and get into classic, and let's go ahead and look at what I ended up with the animation. Okay, so I ended up getting all that done and looking pretty good, pretty happy with that. And I tweaked it out so when the water would hit that plane right here, that they would basically disappear. And I only went with 300 frames. You can see here that I've got 300 frames. So I ended up with 300 frames. That's plenty, I think. So we'll start it. And so I go all the way to 300 frames. So it's the simulation's actually done at about frame 150. Okay. All right. So great. So what I need from you guys is when you get your lighting all completed, now it doesn't the lighting doesn't have anything to do with the screenshot. So the screenshot is basically your entire environment, okay? And whatever that may be. As long as I can see that you have you have your simulation completed, and you have basically 4 of your props that you need to have. Okay, you need to be able to count 4 props besides the water fountain. Okay, so that's one thing I'm going to be looking for in this shot. So you do a screenshot, fairly easy if you're on Windows. If you're not on Windows, on a Mac, you can do Command Shift 4 on a Mac. Command plus Shift plus 4 on a Mac. That will do a screenshot. All you have to do is just kind of drag over the scene here, drag it over, and then go ahead and save it out. With the Windows, you can just hit the S key, snipping tool, click on that. If you haven't done this before, what I would suggest is put that off to the side and go from classic up here to export, and that gives you a full frame. Okay, now I can't see my snipping tool, unfortunately. That kind of got messed up. Let me try that again. And let's go into here, do the snipping tool. There we go. And let's kind of move that over so you can't see it, and then go to in mode, go to rectangular snip, and then you can go in here and just kind of do a snip like this. Okay. Now if you're wondering why I have a white background, that's the gate. That's a gate you can put on there. You don't need to have that on if you don't want to. That's if you're wondering why that's there. That's why I did that. So go File, Save As, and save that to your desktop. And I need you to put your first name and your last name on there. Okay. All right. So first name and last name. Okay. First name, last name, Module 4, entire scene, and that's your. And just do a JPEG for me, please. There you go. All right. Cool. I've already done that, so we're good there. So that I need to have that. So give that to me. And then I need you to set up your lights, and if you want to see what those look like real quick, I'll give you a chance to go ahead and get those. We'll get those set up. So those are directional lights. You need to have 4 of them. Okay. And basically, one is a key light. I don't think I renamed these lights, and I probably should have. So let's do, there's a key light here. That's the one that we're going to be using to light and shade the scene. Here's the key light. Here's the fill light. These are 2 fill lights here. 2 fill lights, and there's the backlight or a rim light there. So I did a 3-point light system with this one. I did 4-point light system. An outdoor scene, you need a little bit more. Software render is probably the worst renderer you could ever use, but we're kind of stuck with it with the particles. Arnold does do particles, but it does not replicate them properly. So when we're doing blobby surface, it had a hard time with that. So we'll just wait until we get another version that will handle it a little bit better, and hopefully that'll be soon. But right now we're going to use the software render. So how do we get to that? So let's take you through the lights first. Okay. So the lighting needs to be a little different than Arnold. Arnold, we don't need to do much. V-Ray, you don't need to do much. But with a software renderer, we have to kind of fake those bounced light beams, and the lights light rays kind of bounce around that's what these lights are here to simulate. So these are the fill lights. Okay, so let's start with the key light first. That's what you're going to create. What I want you to do is go ahead and basically you can write these down. If you want to get exact numbers, write these down. Go ahead and pause the video right now and write those down. Okay, and that's the key light, right? Of course, you can do your own thing, but an experiment, I'm all for that. But those of you that are interested in what my lights are exactly, I'm going to show you right now. So I'm going to go Control A and get into the actual light itself. So the key light has a color of white. Normally I would do kind of an off-white or kind of a little bit of a yellow hue to it. But I left it white because I can always color correct it in Photoshop, and that's what I expect you guys to do too. And then intensity, I have it at 0.8. Okay, everything's checkmarked here. For shadows, I did not use depth map shadows. I use ray trace shadows. They're a lot more accurate. And a light angle of 1.5, which diffuses the shadow out a little bit. And then light shadow rays at 5, ray depth at 5. Okay. There's nothing else in here that I changed. So everything's perfect. So we got everything in there. Please pause the video if you need to kind of replicate what I've got here. All right. Okay. The next one I created was a fill light. Okay. So the attributes for this one is here. Okay, go ahead and pause the video and get those numbers down. And then in here I did, let's go up. So this light is up to 0.25 for intensity. Again, I did not use any ray tracing. So we're getting all the light source from the sun. So this is the one that is actually the sun. And this one is just filling that area up. So we don't want any more shadows in your scene, so make sure you turn that off. Just uncheck use ray trace shadows and make sure that's not checked at all. Okay, all three of these are checked on top, and with that one, that's it. Nothing else. Okay, and then I created another. Basically, I took this one and duplicated it over to this one. Okay, just duplicated it over, and that's the same exact one. And with that, where that is in space is here. Okay. Now I scaled them just to be able to see them better. Okay. That's why you see that scale on them. Go ahead and pause the video and write those down. Get those typed in. Okay. And then the rim light. These are the translate values for that light. So go ahead and pause the video and write those down. And then in this one here, this one's 0.25 as well. Okay, and we do not have ray trace shadows on that at all. Everything's the same. Okay, so that's the lighting setup. Okay, now the camera. All right, so the camera, I went ahead and did a bookmark on the camera. If you've never heard of that before, then get your camera set up to where you can see your entire environment. Make sure you can see the water, and I can see the simulation. You just have to really compose the shot perfectly, so where I can see at least 4 of your objects in there. That's why I asked for a screenshot in case you forget to do that. If you forget to compose your shot where I can see all 4 of your required assets, that way I can go into the screenshot and find it. So don't worry if you can't show all 4. If you set dress it in such a way that you can't see all 4, I would highly recommend that you do set dress it that way. But if you don't, and you only show a couple, make sure you give me the screenshot, otherwise I'll be taking points off. Okay, so make sure you have both of those available, screenshot and the play blast. Okay, so with that said, all I did was UV. I UV mapped everything. You know, that takes time. I understand that. That's why it's optional to actually texture your environment. It looks better if you do, and it's more fun, and you get to show it off because we're going to be sharing all these videos, especially this one and the car crash. So you know, just to show off a little bit, show people you can do this. You're going to want to texture it and make it look nice. Okay, I will accept it with just materials like the very first module. Where I accepted just materials, but as we go farther into this, I'm going to expect more realistic texturing, you know, and there are going to be times where I don't, you know, like the cauldron. I don't really ask for realistic textures, but if you want to go above and beyond, go for it. But this is one you can really shine on and have fun with. Okay. Alright, so just get your camera set up. There's nothing special, I'm just using the perspective camera. Okay. So how do you, once you get your camera, your perspective view set, how do you do a bookmark? So you go to View, you go to Bookmarks, and you go to Edit Bookmarks. And then in here, it will probably have nothing in here. Maybe it has like Camera 1 or Camera or something like that. You want to click on New Bookmark, and you can name it whatever you'd like. So let's just say Cam _ 01 FIN is in finished, and then I hit Enter. Okay, you have to hit Enter, and then click Apply, and then Close. Okay, and then what you can do is you can move out anytime you want to. Go to View, go to Bookmarks, go to Camera, whatever you just click, had in there and created, it will go right to it. Now the reason why I do that is because when you're doing a simulation, it's hard, since your camera's set up, it's hard to click off of your stuff, right? It's really difficult. So if you have to click out, so just click anywhere in here, and then you can go in here to View, Bookmarks, and then you've got your shot. And so you do your simulation, let it run through one time. Alright, and it's already run through one time. It's not going to gather any more information, so I'm going to pause it. And then I'm going to show you how to get your settings set up. Alright, so Maya Software, production quality, highest quality, Gaussian filter, pixel type. I've got motion blur set up. It doesn't work that well, but it works good enough. I wish it was better, but it's just the way it is. Okay, ray trace quality. You want ray tracing on 10, 10, 10. Okay, I almost missed that one. That's what's going to show your shadows. If your shadows aren't showing, that's probably why it's probably unchecked. Alright, so motion blur, go ahead and pause it and get those set up. And then in here, Comments tab, then you want to make sure your renderable camera is perspective, and then the presets is HD 1080. Okay, and pixel aspect ratio 1920 by 1080, and it should come up when you do this. There we go, should be good. And then under render options, I always forget to tell students this, but because I don't ever use software render much except for these classes here. It's usually set up like this, and you have to turn that off because it gives you default light. Now in Arnold, and I'm not sure about V-Ray, but in Arnold it doesn't give you any lights, meaning that if you click on render, it'll be black. With Maya Software, it always has a default light in there, which is great, but if you forget it's on, it can ruin your render because it's going to be too bright. So turn that off. Okay? Alright, cool. With that said, then it's just basically you want to double check everything. So the best way to go is to check your scene without simulation. So let's go back in here. And if you're doing a preview render or just kind of a test render, you don't want full resolution. You want to do really low resolution, and then go ahead and do a render. Okay. Alright, so I'm gonna pause this. Okay, that looks okay. It's decent, nothing fantastic. It's very overly bright. That's just the software renderer. That's nothing you did. But I'm gonna bring it into Photoshop and really make it look great. So add a lot of contrast, and I'll show you the finished product. I know you guys know how to use Photoshop, so I'm not. This is not a Photoshop class. So you need to post-process everything you ever render. It's got to go through Photoshop. Otherwise, you're not doing your job. So renders usually do not look good. You always have to post-process. So that one's okay. It's flat looking, but we can go in there and fix things in Photoshop. But that's it. That's the scene. So that's looking good. So we're good with that. I'm happy. Tweak your lights off. I see shadows. You know where you need to see shadows. Okay. You don't see any black areas or dark areas. That's why I have all those key lights in there. Okay. Alright, so that's good. So now you're ready to go full resolution. So let's go full resolution. Once you get your lighting all set up. Now, just because my lighting's set up this way doesn't mean yours will be the same way. Even if you put in all the same numbers, you're going to need to make sure that the intensity, you play with tweak out the intensities so your scene looks good. Again, this is an outdoor scene, so you would probably want to get some reference shots to see how bright it is outside. So check out other people's work and photographs of exterior lighting. I got this from HDR Haven. Okay, HDR Haven. So it's not a real HDR image, but when you find one you like an HDR image, they usually have an option of clicking on just the JPEG. So look for that. Every single one of them should just have an image, a picture, and that's how I got that. Okay. So anyway, so that's how you can do that. And what we need to do next is go ahead and go for a full render, but we need to do our simulation first. Let it go through at least one time. It shouldn't take that long, maybe 150 frames. Mine's running at 150 frames before it's completed. And there we go, 150. So that's good. So I'm going to just stop it. And this is where you're going to render again. So you're all set up, so all you have to do is render. Okay, so here's the final render. I wish the motion blur would be a lot better. That's what's causing it to not look as realistic as it should. Looks more like glass beads, but that's okay for now. For this example, that'll be fine. And if I wanted to do this the right way, I would probably render out the scene. If I was going to do an animation, render out the scene without the dynamic simulation, and then render just the particles, and then composite everything together in either After Effects or Premiere Pro, and that's what I would do. If you want to do this, have it look a little more professional, look more realistic. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this now, and I'm going to take it into Photoshop and mess with it. Alright, so here's my post-processed images. I've got the render out of Maya, which is really flat. I mean, about as flat as a pancake. And then I went ahead and post-processed it. What I started with is I went into image adjustments. I started with the brightness contrast. Slightly touched on that, put it through levels, and then I put it through exposure. I did not do vibrance and hue and saturation. I went straight down to shadows and highlights, and just added more tone into the colors and highlights and shadows. And then the last thing I did was did a color balance, and to get a little more green and blue and warmth into the overall composition. So so that you can see that there's a huge difference between what Maya software renders out, which is totally flat, to something that you can kind of add vibrance to and finish up, making it look a lot better than it did. So that's the final piece. That's the rendered shot that I need from you with the particles that have simulated. Okay. Alright. Okay, so basically, guys, you're done with this part of it, the end of the render piece. So save that out. Okay, so the only thing you need to do now is a play blast. So let's go ahead and get the play blast. Let's move out. Just click off somewhere. We don't want to see, so show lights, turn that off. So now we're going to do a play blast. So let me get back into my bookmark. There we go. Is that the one? Yep, I think that's it. And so let's go ahead and do a play blast of this. It shouldn't take too long. and then you'll be ready to turn everything in. Okay, great. So now what I'm going to do is right click over HeBlast, view, AVI, XFID 100, we're all ready to go. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to get rid of this, so I'm going to tell it where to go, browse. I want your first name and last name, underscore Annie 255 and module 04. Here we go. And you can say water fountain if you want to. Alright, that's it. Save it to your desktop. I would highly recommend that. Otherwise, make sure you know where you're putting it, and then go ahead and save it and play Blast. And it shouldn't take long. And there it is in all its glory. Alright, great. Perfect. And that's it. Those are the two pieces you have to have. Of course, you're going to give me an OBJ, an MB file, an FBX file. So that's it. Congratulations, you made it this far. If you are, just follow the deliverables folders and make all the folders. Put all the scene files in the scenes folder, the PlayBlast into the PlayBlast folder, the screenshot into the screenshot folder, and then if you want to do the extra credit, make an extra credit folder and put your finalized final movie fully rendered into that, and you get an extra 10 points. Just follow the directions for the extra credit and you're good to go. If you have questions about anything, you need to get a hold of me. It's jbyers3@jccc.edu. Congratulations, you guys did a great job this week, and I look forward to seeing you guys in Module 5. Hope you're having fun, and I'll see you then.